Welcome back. The God Ask, Session 2, a biblical foundation for support raising. We will continue with our brainstorming around support raising. In this next session, we will look at the basic yet important checklist to launch you into support raising. I truly believe that if you commit yourself to following these principles as set out in this seminar, if you are truly faithful, God will provide abundantly for your ministry. The time is now. Do not worry about your past, about your previous mistakes in fundraising. Look forward. Look to Jesus. He called you into this ministry, did he not? I believe that we are in the last stretch, the anchor leg of our lives here on earth. This is the time that it matters most, regardless of how tired we are or what excuses we have. We now have to give it our all. Now is the time. So often when we are in the last stretch, we actually give up and we bail out. When we face adversity or difficulty, we tend to run away from what God called us to do. This is the time to actually stand up, to be involved in spreading the gospel as a testimony to the ends of the world, including the area where you minister and where you live. It sometimes can be too easy to just sit on the couch and not start at all, not to get up, not to do something spectacular for Jesus, and to get despondent about what needs to be done right now to be a great steward for Jesus. When Jesus comes, I want him to look down at my ministry and smile and say, "Well done, Jaco, you've been a faithful servant." Don't you want Jesus to smile at your ministry and what you have done for him? We cannot afford to not go all in, not to stand up, and not to be counted as workers for the gospel here on earth. There are two voices inside each one of us. The positive, the leader, the winner that stands up for something, that wants to do something great, something amazing for Christ. And then there's the doubter, the loser, the naysayer that just breaks down your confidence. Be careful which voice you listen to. Be careful not to surround yourself in this privileged time with negative people. Surround yourself with friends and people that inspire and motivate you and help the dream to work for Jesus, to be a servant for him, to keep it alive. That's the type of friends that you want. Surround yourself with winners. There is no better time than now. We are living in the end game. We have the opportunity to do something spectacular, something great for Jesus. And my prayer is that you will stand up and commit to raise enough money, enough funds to support your ministry and your dream, that one day when Jesus comes and takes us all to heaven, you will have the privilege to stand surrounded by a great multitude of people that you had the privilege to lead and to help lead to Jesus. What do you think is the average time that it takes to raise enough support for your ministry? Statistics say that it's between 18 and 23 months. But I still believe that if God calls you, he will equip you. He will fund you in 100 days or less. Stephen Furtick makes this fascinating and daring comment when he says, "If the size of the vision for your life, for your ministry, is not intimidating to you, there is a very good chance that it is insulting to God." Does a commitment to raise support, enough support for your ministry in 100 days, scare you? Good. There are 5 requirements to raise support and to get to the launch date fully funded. Number 1, the right training. And I believe that this seminar is a kickstart in the right direction. Number 2, the right perspective or attitude. Number 3 is the right approach, the new fresh paradigm that we've spoken about in Seminar 1. Number 4 is accountability. That person that pulls you by the ear and holds you accountable to a higher standard when you have committed to do something. And number 5 is the willingness to work at raising your support full time, to covenant to raise enough money, to go all in. Let's look at the 14 steps to make this dream to work for Jesus a reality. Number 1, make sure that you are all prayed up. Have you prayed and fasted about your vision, about your calling, about your fundraising? Remember that Nehemiah prayed for 4 months before he even dared to approach the king and tell him about his plans, his strategy to go back to Jerusalem to rebuild the city walls. Have you looked at and listed the scripture promises where Jesus called you into full-time ministry? Write them down, pray about them, contemplate them. Have you prayed about your support-raising strategic plan? Have you laid it at Jesus' feet? Have you spoken to him about it? Have you asked his advice? Did he speak to you? Have you prayed about each name on your name-storming list? Really spoken to Jesus about every person that you have an appointment with? Have you considered doing a spiritual refreshment course like God's Heart Call that Abundant Life facilitates, to make sure that there is absolutely nothing that separates you from Jesus, nothing that creates a stumbling block to you actually listening and hearing Jesus' voice? Note, it's well worth it if you're married that you include your spouse in these prayers, and even your kids. Because if you are not intentional to include your family and to seek God's guidance for you as a family in your support raising plans, you will leave your family behind. There's a big reason why MKs or PKs, missionaries' kids, pastors' kids, very often leave the church. And that is because they don't play an active role in their parents' ministry to actually reach people. But when they become ministerial partners in serving with the family, when they are included in the discussions, the prayers and the brainstorming, they feel part of the team. And they do not leave the church. And very often, they pick up the baton and continue running with the project well after the period that the parents have decided to put it to rest. Number 2, do you have a solid accountability partner or accountability plan in place? Once you have committed to your heavenly authority, it is time to get your earthly authority in place. It is time to get a weekly accountability partner. You have to meet with that person, him or her, and see them eye to eye at least once a month so that you can make a promise, so that you can be honest and transparent and open up your heart in your discussions about your fundraising and support raising. You have to at least send a weekly update to give them an idea about the progress in raising support. This email or telephone call, for us, it's on a Sabbath opening, talking about our week, reflecting on our week, praying, crying, laughing about our successes and our failures. And remember, that accountability partner is also your prayer partner that helps you to get to your launch date fully funded. Allow your accountability partner to ask any question, an unfiltered question. Those questions tend to help you grow, help you develop in Christ. They might be personal, they might be about your life, they might be about your schedule. Anything, absolutely anything, as long as it gets me to my launch date fully funded. Number 3, commit to get to 100% on D-date and agree upon that date. Write it in your calendar. Have a fixed fundraising budget figure so that you can work towards it, so that it's so firmly fixed in your brain that you will not stop until you get to that figure, plus attrition. Because it's important to make provision for the sponsor that actually battles to keep to his commitment, so that you do not go into your mission plan or your project with a 95% budget. So normally a good budget is budget plus about 20%. It's also important to commit to raise at least 1% of your budget every single day for 100 days until you've reached your target. Mark it on your calendar. Stick it to your bathroom wall on the inside of your cupboard so that you can look at it every single day, everywhere where you are, so that you can stay focused and motivated to reach that 1% every day so that you can raise enough money for your budget. This will make sure that you also do not procrastinate, so that you can remember the sense of the urgency to which God called you into ministry. Number 4, secure a support-raising expenses war chest. Have a list of possible expenses that you need to fund for the first few days of your 100-day fundraising campaign. Have a detailed budget about it. Have a budget for your 3 months living expenses, for your sponsor expenses. Make sure that you include expenses like your website, postage, data, especially travel, telephone, fuel, and accommodation costs. Make sure that you plan for your travel meals. Make sure that you plan and cost for your marketing material. And then determine what would be your most important and strategic costs. But remember that you are a frugal steward of God's resources here on earth. So make sure that you save enough money, that you save everywhere that you can. You want to be a good steward with your war chest. Approach 1 or 2 key individuals who will form part of your fundraising campaign and who will make an initial investment in your war chest so that you will have enough resources for the 100 days so that you can actually raise enough money to go into the mission field fully funded. Be honest, be transparent, have integrity about the money. Give regular and constant feedback about how you spend the income in that war chest. These individuals will plant the seeds for your ministry, and they are entitled to a share in the gain. So give them the acclamation and the reward that are due or that is due to them. Make sure that they form part of your long-term strategy as well, and that you have a good relationship with them because they've invested in you on God's behalf. Number 5, meet with your steering committee. Recoup a group of friends, normally it's about 6 to 12, that meet once a month, preferably once a week. For us, it's on Sabbath closing. They should hear about your progress. They should pray with you. They should plan your week with you. They should encourage you and give advice and guidance. They should definitely give constructive criticism. They should help you brainstorm about names and contacts. They should also hold you accountable with your accountability partners so that they can keep you on track and keep you focused so that you reach your launch date fully funded. They should commit to pray with you. During this time, afterwards, every time when you go into a meeting, one of your steering committee partners should intercede on your behalf and help you ask God to provide adequate funds for your project. Have an inaugural dinner meeting where you sit down and pray and worship together, and then have a sending off or launching or commissioning dinner where you celebrate God's success in providing for your ministry and your support absolutely abundantly and adequately. Number 6, finalize all your presentation models. Make sure that you have budgets. Make sure that you understand all the terminology in your budgets, especially if you go to a complex project like being a career missionary at a project like Adventist Frontier Missions. Make sure you have a LOGS, a level of givings sheet that indicate the pyramid to which people can subscribe to contribute to your expenses. Have a name storming sheet with details applicable to your project where you can brainstorm and write down details so that you can make contact, geographical contact with people as you move through South Africa collecting funds or another country. Have a vision and mission calling sheet, a worksheet that clearly indicates where God called you, what He called you for, the scripture promises, what you're going to do in a short and a long version. Have your testimony worked out, a long and a short version, and practice this. Because according to Revelation 12:11, there are 3 ways that we can actually combat Satan, and one of them is by the word of our testimony. It's extremely important for waging war here on earth. Have a phone script typed out and practiced to the T. Have a WhatsApp script, a SMS script. Practice it, use it, save it. Have it spell checked. Get somebody that can keep you accountable to the quality of your work. Have an email in a letter template so that you can easily copy and paste it and send it out to people so that you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time compiling and composing details and correspondence. Have a meeting layout, a face-to-face appointment plan. Sit with somebody that has a contrite spirit, a real devil's advocate that you can spend time with and that you can pitch your marketing campaign, your strategy, your support raising campaign to, where you can show him all your details and you can practice it so that he can critique and criticize your plan, and so that you can exercise it and plan and practice it so much that it will literally roll from the tip of your mouth. Have manual copies of your presentation, preferably more than one, because somebody might ask to take it with a copy of your business card for future reference or to show and give to somebody else. And a manual hard copy, because we do not trust the devil. Have an electronic version of above, because sometimes it's nice if you can sit with electronic media to show that we're living in an electronic age and where we have slideshows that make our presentations easier. Practice to plug in your applications like an iPad or a computer to a PowerPoint presenter so that you are fluent in presenting it, so that technology does not hinder your presentation skills. Have programs like TNT software installed on your electronic media so that you can keep an electronic copy of your support raising structure and your contacts so that you can make proper contact with your donors and your sponsors. Have a birthday card designed, professionally designed, in an electronic and a manual format so that you can post it, WhatsApp it, SMS it, and email it. Have an accountability sheet or a process sheet drafted and detailed so that you know what is asked of you and what you need to adhere to. Have a covenant signed with your accountability partner and your steering committee. Number 7, role play the call, the appointment, and the follow-up. Daily, for the next 30 days, review all your material that we've spoken about. Literally take every piece of material, read through it, and practice your pitch. Practice your face-to-face appointment. Read your email letter to make sure that there are no faults in it. Read your SMSs or your WhatsApp. Look at your material in your presentations. Read through your testimony and practice it. Daily for the next 30 days, make sure that you know exactly, off heart, that even if you waken up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can present a pitch. It's very important to practice this with your steering committee and ask them to give you constructive criticism. And ask your guinea pigs to be brutally honest, to give you verbal and non-verbal comments, to show you if your tongue, the 7% of your communication, is effective. And above all things, if the 93, the non-verbal communication, is effective. Let them critique you and be transparent enough. And then videotape yourself. Look at yourself. But be nice. Remember, a video adds a few pounds, so don't be too critical. But in saying that, a good exercise plan and a diet plan is something that you can really consider. Number 8, firm up my support raising calendar. Divide your contacts into low, medium and high priorities. That name storming sheet that we spoke about. Divide your contacts also into a pray, give, go and a go-to category. And also create different broadcast lists on your WhatsApp or your SMS or your email templates for these specific groups. Group them on TNT accordingly. Enter the details, albeit limited at this stage, into a geographical map specifically on something like TNT, because when you go to a specific area like Heidelberg in Gauteng, you can easily say and see which of your contacts are geographically based in Heidelberg so that you can make contact with them and sit and just pray and worship together and brainstorm and ask God what He has in store for you and for them. Plan a road trip. Confirm with congregations. Send letters to conferences. Sometimes this needs to be done months in advance, even before you start fundraising or your 100 days, so that those fixed days can be plotted in. The 15 Sabbaths of your fundraising campaign can be plotted in and planned in on your calendar. Plan your contacts and your face-to-face appointments early enough. Sometimes it's difficult to get our conference president to sit across the table and to pray together and ask him for advice. But if you plan early enough, he will open his diary for you, and so will other leaders that you need to make contact with to support your ministry. Number 9, create a top 10 list. Pray over your name storming list. Pray again. Create a timeline. Look at extensive names or categories in that list, and then highlight 10 names that the Holy Spirit impresses on your heart, that will have the biggest impact on your ministry, that will have the strongest desire to be part of your strategy and your ministry for Jesus. Set up appointments with these 10 names, because they will give you direction and courage for your 100 days that lay ahead. Start strong and get a yes from these 10 names, because if you have these 10 commitments, these 10 names that plant and open the door initially for your ministry, they will allow you to add to your names and to your funds and your support war chest and your budget on a daily basis. And then remember to also ask them for a referral. Number 10, pack out your first week calling cards and your pack and your details for your appointments. Plan your schedule for that full week, the 7 days from the time that you wake up to the time that you go to bed. Remember to plan enough time for prayer and devotionals, and to center even those days where you're working for God, around God, and not to forgive or forget God, even though you work for Him on His behalf. Pray over your name storming list. Pray over that list day by day. According to discipleship movements that changed and impacted the world, they say that missionaries pray on average between 4 and 6 hours per day. And those projects, those missionaries are successful. Start making calls around 8:30 to 9 o'clock in the morning. Other people might not be up at 5 o'clock in the morning already, so be cautious about your time. Schedule at least 5 appointments per day in a geographical area. There is no use scheduling an appointment in Johannesburg for 8 o'clock in the morning and an appointment in Cape Town for 1 o'clock that same day. You will not be frugal with your money, and it will not be wise. It will take exceptionally hard work to contact everybody on your name storming list. It will take hours and hours on the telephone, hours and hours in meetings. Be prepared and committed to do the hard work. Take every spare minute to make a phone call, to send a SMS, to send a WhatsApp or an email. But remember, there is no substitute for face-to-face contact, because it's proven, and the statistics say that for every 4 calls, you will more or less get 1 appointment. And for every 1 appointment, you will get about half a yes. So, it's hard work, a low closure rate, but I believe that you can do it. And do not let idleness slip into your calendar. Number 11, pack out your second week's material list. Use the above plan, the plan that you've done for week number 1. Be willing to accept that your vision and your calling will not change, because it's built on the rock. It's cast in solid stone, but that your strategy and your plan might change day by day and a little by little, week up to week. Be flexible, but to try and fill your days with appointments, with phone calls, so that you can reach your goal 1% every single day until you reach your launching date. Number 12, pack out the next week with appointments and calls. Also plan that week. Do the same for every consecutive week, 15 weeks in total, until you reach 100 days. But remember that if you fail to plan, you are in fact planning to fail. Ask feedback from your steering committee and your accountability partners. Once you've done the planning for 100 days, take that plan, pray about that plan, speak to your steering committee, speak to your commitment or your accountability partners, and get their constructive criticism. Because in the multitude of counselors, there truly is, according to Proverbs, very, very, very wise counsel. Keep a daily or a day for special prayer and fasting. Don't burn yourself out. Sometimes after a camp meeting, it's needed that you put time aside for administrative duties, especially when you immediately amass a great amount of names on your name storming list. Sometimes it's possible to consider as taking a Sunday off after you visited the congregation on a Sabbath. Always remember to schedule your reporting with your accountability partner and your steering committee. They are crucial to you raising 100% of your budget. Their input is also critical. Their prayers are just so much, or so important. They might also be attentive to names that you miss, especially when you take somebody from your steering committee with when you go and you meet a congregation or when you speak at a camp meeting. And stay focused, because it's going to take 100 days for you to reach your goal. Number 13, send out a monthly newsletter. Start and plan your newsletter ahead. Set it out, plan it, create or get somebody with an artistic design flair to help you to create a platform and a template for that newsletter. Again, you might decide to get buy-in from your accountability or your steering partner, your steering committee, so that they can help you with this design. Liaise with sending organizations where they can send you copies of their newsletters and their information. Because if you are in an administrative position, you are part of a bigger team. So the frontline mission story is also your story and your investor or your supporters' story. Plan and set up your Facebook and Instagram posts, and make sure that if you go to a project that is closed, where you're not allowed to openly spread the gospel of Jesus, that you have your pen name and your camouflage set up, so much so that the sending organization and the missionaries working in that area are not compromised. Be honest and transparent and vulnerable. Get some feedback. Set up a structure for auditing so that you can actually know if people read and receive your details and if they can interact with it. Keep your vision and your mission, what actually changed lives, in the forefront, the reason for your ministry. People do not want to hear about the 2 blisters that you picked up while you went hiking this weekend. Remember, no poor talk ever. And I want to say this again because it's crucially important. Do not get caught up seeing your sponsor or your donor as an ATM and spreading poor talk, thinking and being deceived that that will put enough guilt in their hearts to fund your ministry. It is not sustainable. And lastly, pause for a day of evaluation and reloading, and then you start all over again. At the end of each day, take a day, set it aside, a day beyond Sabbath, to pray, to assess, to read, to get feedback, and just to plan ahead again. Commit to do it every single month. And do your best. Be honest with yourself. The more focused you are and the more you pray and the more you trust God, the harder you will work. The greater your sense of urgency will be to start and to reach your launch date so that you can go into full-time ministry. The more your passion for what you do will be contagious, and the more you will move other people into action. I sincerely hope that this basic 14-day checklist will help you to be successful. I believe that if you adopt these kinds of attitudes and practices, this methodology, if you really commit to do them, you will look back at what God has done through you, in you, and around you, and you will glorify God for the amazing successes that He has given you. I believe that you can do this. Do not procrastinate. Half the battle is getting started. So let's run into battle. I want to challenge you to make contact with Adventist Frontier Missions in South Africa. We are more than willing to support you to raise money for your ministry. I am more than willing to help you being your accountability partner and to form part of your steering committee. And I believe so much in this process that I am willing to put my cell phone number and my name on the international platform. My contact details are listed in the seminar. Chat to me when we get back for our question and answer session, because I believe that we cannot delay any longer. We cannot delay and think and procrastinate not to go into the ministry fully funded. The time is now, and I believe that we can do this, so that when Jesus comes, He can smile at you, smile at me, and say, "You are a good and faithful servant." Looking forward to seeing you at the question and answer seminar on Zoom. Follow the link. Chat to you later. God bless. Friend, thank you for spending time with me here at Mission Convention 2020, brainstorming and talking about the God Ask, a biblical foundation for fundraising. What can we do for you at Adventist Frontier Missions and Abundant Life? If you send me your business card or if you join me at the question and answer session, I will help you to get copies of all the documentation that we've spoken about. I will also be willing to send you copies of my notes and my summary of the God Ask. We have also drafted a lot of material like the level of giving sheet as well as the name storming sheet, to name but a few. Please reach out to us, send us an email, give me a telephone call, or even be daring enough to join AFM or Abundant Life for a year or 2 or 3 or a career to serve God in a foreign mission field. But at least covenant to serve Him where you live. God bless.